This is a Muscle Cat Media production.
Welcome back to Baseball Expats Mid-World Series edition. Getting set for game number 3 as the series shifts to Los Angeles, and as has been the case with this show, basically the entire year, one of us is missing. This time it's Eric, Rolsey, and Spoon with you. Spoon, how are you, my friend?
Very well, very well. I can thank my mum and her English roots for the skin I have that lets me burn in about 15 minutes of sun exposure. So a little red, a little lobstery. But other than that, I'm relaxed and been enjoying the last couple of days of baseball without enjoying both results.
Joining us from a villa in Bali, I guess I should have said is where Spoon is. Yeah, look, the first 2 games of this World Series were 2 very different games, and I don't necessarily know what I expected to happen. I definitely don't think that I expected the Jays to do what they did in Game 1 offensively. I mean, the Dodgers just completely collapsed. Blake Snell just completely collapsed in Game 1. It was a funny game, and in a lot of ways, the first 2 games were very similar. In the first, 2-3 innings, it felt like they were going to be tight matchups, but in Game 1, you just kind of got this sense that it was like, oh, maybe this Toronto magic is a thing, because, I mean, Addison Barger comes in, gets that pinch hit grand slam, the first time ever in a World Series. Alejandro Kirk, who's the cult figure that he is, he homers. Dalton Varsho homers. Ohtani's kind of getting these boos and these chants of "we don't need you," et cetera, et cetera. So it kind of set the stage for a really cool atmosphere that we expected in Toronto. And with them winning in the emphatic sense that they did, it was almost like, oh man, this team can win the World Series. That was sort of my takeaway from Game 1.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we'll talk a bit more about what it means, what both games mean for the series as a whole a little bit later on. But I agree with you, and that almost makes it feel like yesterday was such a missed opportunity to continue that momentum, right? Like if you were a Blue Jays fan and you knew it was going to be 1-1 after your first 2 home games, I think you would have loved what happened Game 1 to happen Game 2, right? Like that offensive onslaught where bats are cold first and they come hot and it's like, okay, we're going to LA now on a run. It kind of, yeah, I think, we'll talk about Game 2 and the series a little bit later on, but it did make a lot of people believe. It's a shame that it was kind of short-lived. And I think perhaps most impressively was it wasn't, the usual suspects, like, don't get me wrong, Vladdy and I think Springer both had a couple of hits and Bo might have had one too. But as far as the big moments, it was a guy off the bench who, slept on someone's couch the night before. And that's what made it seem like, okay, this is not just 9 guys. This is like 12 or 13 guys doing it. But yeah, I mean, both starters kind of matched each other, right? And similarly to Game 2, it felt like someone's going to break, but when they break, they break. And that's where both bullpens are kind of at right now. But yeah, I mean, I had a great time watching both games, especially Game 1, because, I've seen it plenty of times as a fan of the NL West. It's not that often the Dodgers get in front by a couple of runs and let you back in. And obviously, historically, they've had better bullpens than they have this year. But when it went to 2-0 early, it was just like, oh, tell me this isn't going to be the start of, what would be worst case scenario for this World Series, which is just the Dodgers dominating. And I said in our chat, credit to the fans at Rogers Center in both games, because I think they were definitely worth a couple of runs. Like that was, I've got non-baseball mates who tune into the World Series because I kind of put our friendship on the line if they don't. And the feedback I got from those guys was like, awesome stadium, awesome atmosphere, awesome crowd. And that's a testament to all the fans who turned up in Toronto.
And you're right. It felt like LA was just doing annoying LA things early. Like they sort of manufactured and were able to score a run in the second inning. Then they tacked on in the third of that first. And it was just kind of like, this is what this whole World Series is going to be, right? It's just going to be Los Angeles annoyingly scoring runs at opportune times. But then, I mean, it's obvious to say that you didn't see a 9-run inning coming in the 6th, but things just compounded on Blake Snell a little bit in that inning. And then as you talked about the fact that Dodger bullpen that has been hot and cold, it's been in and out the entire season. And based on what happened in that inning with Snell getting shelled and the bullpen just basically coming in to try and clean things up, and even they couldn't do so, it basically made Dave Roberts go, I don't have anybody out there I can trust. And I don't know
Yeah.
if how many guys he felt like he had that he could trust coming into the series, but if he did have those guys, nobody obviously filled him with any confidence in game number two. And it, I guess, maybe changed the way that he managed in game two. Sorry, that was in game number one. In game number two, potentially changed the way that he managed and allowed Yoshinobu Yamamoto to do something that was all time. But that's going to be something for me to keep an eye on now, is based on what happened in that first game. It's almost like Dave Roberts has gone, I've got 5 pitchers and a guy in the back end of the bullpen that I can trust, and those are starters and a closer. That's it. I don't feel like I have any bridge to get from point A to point B. We're just going to have to try and get as many innings as we can out of the starters, and ultimately that's why it led to an ultimate pitching performance and one for the ages for Yoshinobu Yamamoto in game two.
Yeah, I think the Dodgers missing someone. There was like a statement put out before game one that I think one of their relievers, Alex Vessia's got like some personal stuff going on.
He's had a family emergency.
Yeah, so I feel like that part of it was like a flow-on effect there, right, too, because he was probably, at least, if not the best, but the most consistent bullpen arm for LA this year. And I feel like, I mean, even like, we've talked probably at length. I would say the most talked about Dodgers player on this show this year is probably Roki Sasaki, right? Like for varying reasons. Knowing that he is in the bullpen and he was the only guy warming up in the whole game in game two, I'm still not convinced he can handle World Series pressure out of the bullpen, right? Like he couldn't really handle opening day pressure in LA back in March or April. So if I'm Toronto, I'm kind of like, you can throw anything at me right now, we're going to be okay. The only way we're not is if what happened yesterday happens, where we don't even get a chance to see someone else. But yeah, look, Snell, like I talked about with Eric and obviously yourself in the group chat the last couple of days, I want to see 4 or more pitches per plate appearance from the Blue Jays. I think Snell was 4.1. Yesterday ended up being under 3 in comparison for Yamamoto. Which is crazy because I know we're going to try and talk about game 1 and 2 in isolation, but there are a lot of contrasts, right? So if you look at game 2 yesterday, Yamamoto was on like 20-something pitches and like on the ropes in that first inning. How different does that game go if they just tack on a run there, right? Or they drag that inning out another 10 pitches. Like at best case, he's out there till the 4th or 5th. And I feel like that's where they got to Snell, was those patient ABs, those 0-2. I think there were 2 or 3 plate appearances that started 0-2 and finished with a walk, which, he was missing location, but it also takes great play discipline to get to that point. And all of a sudden, they gave him no choice. They gave Roberts no choice but to pull Snell, even though he knew he had no one else. And I think that's where, for the next 3 games, the Jays really need to get back to, is those extended ABs and just locking in on particular parts of the zone.
So obviously going into game 2, it was big for the Blue Jays, because if they're able to win both of those games at home, you got to go to LA and feel like, look, we just need to steal one and we can go back home and have a chance to win this thing. And they had an opportunity early against Yamamoto. I mean, we will forever remember that start for what he did, ultimately going 105 pitches, a complete game, a second consecutive complete game. He had not had a complete game in the majors prior to the NLCS, and now he's got back-to-back in the NLCS and the World Series. The Blue Jays had opportunities. I mean, they were lengthy innings for Yoshinobu in the first and second innings, and the Jays had guys on base. They had chances. They just weren't able to capitalize. And from that point, that's where that X-Spoon rating went way down. I mean, I don't feel like we saw a 3-pitch at bat from the Blue Jays against Yamamoto. He was either striking guys out in 3 pitches, or the Jays were swinging so early in counts that they were grounding out softly, popping out softly, etc. So once they kind of squandered those early opportunities, and they were so good with men in scoring position with runners on base in game 1, and obviously exploded in that big 6th inning, but not being able to get to Yamamoto early, letting him figure it out, and then getting really quick and effective innings, it was just kind of like a pile-on effect. And for mine, what will go unnoticed is the start that Kevin Gausman had, because those two were matching each other motor for motor, right? Like, it was turning into an excellent pitching duel. Like, it was turning into an all-time head-to-head pitching matchup. But then obviously Muncy gets the home run, or Will Smith gets the go-ahead home run. Max Muncy tacks on, and Schneider feels like, okay, I got to go out there and get him. and then the rest is history. Yamamoto goes on, gets the complete game, etc. And I'm with you, because then it feels like the Jays now are like, is our offense as good as what it was in game one, or was that an anomaly? Was it just a moment in time where we took advantage of some opportunities? Maybe things got to the Dodgers. Yes, we got into their bullpen. I think after game two, the Blue Jays are probably scratching their heads a little bit and going, how do we get back to that? Because Yamamoto was good. He was mixing his pitches well. The split he was working later in the game. He was having some control issues early, but once he really settled in, he looked unhittable. But a lot of that, I think, was because the Blue Jays went away from what their approach was in game one. They completely basically threw it out the window and said, this guy's so difficult to hit. When we get behind in counts, we're going to swing early. But he was just inducing soft contact. They couldn't do anything with it. And that just became a snowball effect. And 105 pitches later, it was a complete game win for the Dodgers. And we were headed back to LA 1-1.
Yeah, I mean, a couple points to add on what you said. Absolutely. Like, Gausman was shoving, and, both those home runs, as you pointed out when we were talking about it, came in two strike counts, right? I think the first one was 2-2. The second one was a full count. It seems like he was so eager to not walk that he almost, he obviously missed location, but he was so keen to challenge still, whereas it wouldn't have been the worst thing to walk, probably either guy. And I think Muncie's like batting sixth in the lineup. The bottom third is yet to produce, to the level that Dodgers lineups typically do as far as like depth. So yeah, I mean, he's a couple of whiffs away from, he was level with Yamamoto on pitch count. Like, he nearly got through 7 on 80 pitches. And who knows then if we're heading into extras, and if we're heading into extras, you probably favor the Blue Jays with their bullpen. So yeah, I think the Jays don't need to be potentially too critical on themselves because of how close that was to going a different way. Whereas it doesn't feel like game one was that far off. Like, Snell was getting himself into trouble and getting out of it, and then he dug a hole he couldn't dig out. And the Jays' pressure there felt like it was building to that moment. But just to recap yesterday, I mean, bottom of the first inning, it's 1-1. Where am I? Springer leads off with a double. I lost it. Sorry, bottom of the first. Springer leads off with a double. Lucas singles. First and third, no out. The massive moment in that game, we probably didn't realize it at the time, was Vladdy's AB, where he had a strikeout on 7 pitches, and he knew it. Like, he's an emotional guy, but I haven't seen him that frustrated in the first inning of a game in a very long time, because what he probably anticipated and ended up happening was that was the chance to get this guy, because if he's vulnerable, it's early. And after that, I don't think many guys reached, if any. And look, what I do like for the Blue Jays, and we'll preview all 3 games in a minute, but what I do like for the Blue Jays is that Glasnow is more of a Blake Snell than he is a Yamamoto, right? Like, he can have these games where control just disappears. He can look filthy for 3 or 4 innings and just walk the bases loaded. It'll be about whether the Jays go back to, as you said, that game one plate discipline, or they're so in their head around, like, we can't get to 2 strikes. This might be the best pitch I see all AB, and keep swinging early, because that's when you get in trouble with the way that Glasnow can throw a curveball in the dirt.
The one thing that I've picked up on, and it seems absurd to say, but the Dodgers are kind of doing this without necessarily. It's not the big stars that have done it for them in games 1 and 2. It doesn't feel like Shohei Ohtani, for all that's been made of his postseason, is it a bit hollow? I mean, it's absurd to say, because his OPS in the postseason, I think, is 1,000, but his batting average is like 210. So yeah, he's been total rocks or diamonds in this series, and he hits that home run in game 1, and everybody's like, okay, Shohei's got a World Series home run. It's his 6th of the postseason. It was a nothing home run.
I can say this
I don't really feel like Shohei has announced himself into the World Series yet, as strange as that is to say.
Yeah, I can say this as a Phoenix Suns fan, but the best call I saw about anything in game 1 or 2 was, the Chris Paul hits a huge 3 to cut the lead to 40. Like, that's what the yeah. That's what that Shohei home run was, right? Like, and then I think the way, I mean, I've seen my fan base alone get burned, but sports fans typically do get burned for the attitude of, like, the way that they were chanting towards Ohtani with the "we don't need you." The amount of times you see that happen, he comes out the next day and hits for the cycle or something like that, right? Like, if you felt like he was going to have that moment, it was going to be game 2. So I'm with you now. I think he's definitely on notice as far as let's see what tomorrow looks like. Heading back home now, I think his numbers have always been better this year and last year at Dodger Stadium. So let's see. If he can't probably generate that response in game 3, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, maybe we need to worry about someone else. And to that end, it has been probably the guys give you a little less. Not to say that Max Muncy and Will Smith aren't guys, but they were guys like 3 or 4 years ago before the Dodgers kind of brought their new batch of Avengers. So I guess you can take that two ways if you're the Jays. Sometimes it's a lot easier if this is the guy that can beat you, and we just stay away from him, right? And that's how teams have beaten the Yankees for the last few years, especially in the postseason. Don't give Aaron Judge anything to hit, and we'll be okay. If the Dodgers are getting production out of 5, 6, 7, or even 4, 5, 6, all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, maybe that is why Gosman was so adamant about not walking anyone, because we can get beaten from top to bottom. I think we're going to have a really, really good idea of where this series is at tomorrow, because both teams can probably tell themselves the game we lost was a fluke, right? Or rationalize that doesn't represent us. Game 1 and 2, we're going to have enough of a sample size, I think, after game 3 to really see the bigger picture.
Well, and you're right. Heading back to Chavez Ravine changes things mightily for the Dodgers. I mean, it's just a team that feels like they're so comfortable playing there. And by stealing a game in Toronto, I mean, and especially with all the issues they had getting out of Toronto, getting back to LA, they like missed a practice time because of the international travel. I think Dave Roberts would be happy to not have to go back to Canada. So if the Dodgers are able to win 3 at home, they don't have to go back to Canada, right? So that's the thing that would weigh heavily on the Blue Jays' mind, is to sit there and just go, we had an opportunity here after winning game 1 to steal game 2 at home, and then just all we need to do is get a win on the road at some point, and then we can come back home with a chance, basically 2 cracks to potentially win it. We'll talk a little bit about tomorrow's game 3. I don't know if you've looked at the market, but do you want to take a guess at which Shohei is to hit a home run tomorrow?
350.
I don't think I've ever seen a price like this for a guy to hit a home run.
Is he 350?
It's $2.30.
Oh, I need to find somewhere to lay that. I'll take the 160 about no.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
That maybe a cause. Like, that's crazy.
Shohei Ohtani, $2.30 to hit a home run tomorrow, and then it gets out to $4. Freddie Freeman, Max Muncy, etc. I don't know that I have ever seen that. Ohtani to hit 2 or more home runs tomorrow, $10.
What's Springer? What's Springer for a home run?
Springer tomorrow is paying $3.75.
Jeez, are they expecting like warm weather or wind? Like none of these. The game line's like what, 7.5? That doesn't seem right.
Yeah. With the Dodgers, huge favorites tomorrow. Look, let's talk a little bit about tomorrow's game. So the starters for game 3. Monday night, Dodger Stadium, Scherzer and Tyler Glasnow. This, for me, has a chance to be an all-time World Series game, and I'll tell you why. The Max Scherzer game at the tail end of the ALCS was awesome. I mean, Schneider talking about how he went out there and basically was told to F off and had to go back into the dugout. Max is going to do whatever he wants, talking about this Mad Max persona and all this sort of stuff. If Max can do that on the road in LA and somehow find a way to win this and put the Blue Jays back in front, 2 games to 1 up going into game 4, it basically achieves what they could have done had they won the first 2 games back in Toronto. Glasnow is an interesting case for me as well. I really, really like this pitching matchup, but it's one where I'm kind of a bit sentimental. And in some ways, you wish that somehow Clayton Kershaw was able to start a game in this series, because if we could get Scherzer v. Kershaw in Game 3, it would have been epic. Obviously, we're not going to see that. But if Max can somehow lift and proverbial push the sun back into the sky to give Blue Jays fans one more day of summer and do what he was able to do in the ALCS in this game, it's going to be something that I think is remembered for a long time.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting about this one, I mean, Max made 17 starts this year and Glasnow made 18. I wouldn't be able to recall many World Series matchups where the 2 starters in Game 3 basically pitched half a season, right? So they've had their injury issues. I think Glasnow's maybe gone over 100 once all season. There's no way Max would have. So in a series that already, the biggest question mark for both teams is the bullpen. Tomorrow is the game that I think we could see the bullpen doors open in the 4th inning for potentially both teams, which both managers are obviously going to be trying to avoid as much as possible. But these guys aren't really going to be length guys with the injury history they've had. And Max is making his second start in a month tomorrow. Like his last start against Seattle, as you said, was on the 16th of October. Start before that was against Boston on the 24th of September. Like 2 starts in 5 weeks is probably not where you want your 41-year-old Max Scherzer to be as far as preparation for this one. And I think you could raise similar concerns for Glasnow, even though he's had a bit more under his belt and sort of more postseason runs on the board so far this year. I think it really does loom as a game where we could see a guy knocked out in the third or fourth. And I wasn't able to say that heading into either of game 1 and 2, with the exception of maybe, where Trey was at, but they were pretty adamant that he needed to be the guy and we needed to give our guys rest. So you could tell they were going to leave him out there sort of sink or swim. Tomorrow, I'm with you. It would have been awesome to see Scherzer and Kershaw, but just as much as it's not Kershaw, it's Glasnow. I'm not sure what we're going to get from either guy. And as I said earlier on, Glasnow has a lot of Blake Snell about him where he can just lose it all of a sudden. And if he loses it, he's going to make Dave Roberts make some really interesting decisions. And what if it is then Roki Sasaki out of the pen? And, how much has he overcome those sort of early season demons where when he was asked to pitch at Dodger Stadium in high leverage situations, they had to pull him out because he kind of couldn't handle it. So a lot of questions to answer, and I'm really excited to find out in 15, 16 hours just about.
Well, just looking back to that Game 4 start for Scherzer in the ALCS, look, he threw 87 pitches, so it's not like they were afraid to stretch him out. The problem is he did get into some jams. I mean, he gave up a run early in that game and did get into some jams, so that 87 pitches, it only kept him in the game for 5 2/3, right? So he didn't even get through the sixth. It's interesting you talk about if the bullpen doors both open in the fourth inning. I mean, we were just talking about the market a moment ago. You're right that the over-under is 7.5. If the bullpen door is open and the weather's warm and these home run props are as short as they are, does 7.5 runs seem low?
It seems low. I mean, we'll talk on my play for game 3 a little bit later, but I think it's obviously there's a world where both guys, probably not so much Max, but there's a world where Glasnow could go 7, right? And really put the Jays in a bind, because I don't think there's a world where Max can go 7. Like you just said, he had 87 pitches last start. There's a handful of starts in his last 5 where he's touched 90, but he finished 5 innings, 4.1. He's prone to walking guys. He's also prone to just getting in those counts that are 6, 7, 8 pitches, something we need Toronto to do tomorrow, where he just can't put guys away because he doesn't have the whiff rate he did when he was younger, right? So his stuff's great, but his fastball is not what it used to be. So it's enough that they can't hit it, but it's not enough that he can generate the swing and miss. And all of a sudden, if you look at the X-Spoon rating the other way around, it's taking him a lot longer to get guys out. So I'm not sure what the over-under is for outs tomorrow for Scherzer. I'm going to guess it would be probably 14.5, maybe 15.5, right on the cusp of that 5-inning mark. It's going to be on the Jays offense to make sure that their bullpen is brought into the game at a similar time, if not the same, as the Dodgers bullpen.
Yeah, Glasnow at the moment showing 15.5 is the over-under, and Scherzer at 14.5, so round about the same spot. So, basically whether or not Scherzer can get himself out of the 5th inning and whether or not Glasnow can get into the 6th. So Scherzer, Glasnow in Game 3. Now, Game 4 is interesting because Bieber's been named as the starter for the Jays. It looks like Shohei potentially is going to go in Game 4. I don't know why he wouldn't. The Dodgers are just being a little bit coy, I guess, in terms of how they're going to use Shohei. But do you expect that that'll probably be the pitching matchup that we see on Tuesday?
I would have thought so, yeah. When did his last pitching start? Was 10 days ago now, right? And we don't need to talk about how brilliant it was. 10 strikeouts, 100 pitches, 3 home runs. People are calling it the best individual baseball game of all time. They must have missed Eugenio Suarez hit 4 home runs earlier this year at Chase Field. But for a guy who does both, pretty impressive. 10 strikeouts, 3 home runs, and just dominant, right? 10 days rest. I can't see a world where it's not him. And look, if the Jays can't get it done tomorrow, that is an enormous mountain to climb, I think. Down 2-1 with your Bieber, who's sort of got some question marks against Ohtani coming off just a peak Ohtani performance, and knowing that he can hit 100 pitches and he's completely over his Tommy John concerns. With that slated as Game 4, tomorrow feels like must win for the Jays.
It's interesting for me if Shohei does pitch for a couple of reasons, right? Because he's never pitched in a World Series game. I mean, this is the first time that this is the first time he's pitched in the postseason this 2025, both in the Division Series and the Championship Series. So he hasn't pitched in a World Series game yet. I wonder how much that start from Yamamoto may have motivated him on the pitching side, because I mean, we've talked about, look, his bat's been hot from a home run standpoint. I mean, he's been a homer machine in the playoffs, but I mean, he's not getting a lot of singles. I mean, he's basically, anytime he puts the ball in play, it's either it's an out or it's a home run. And I wonder from a pitching standpoint, yeah, basically, please sign him in the offseason, St. Louis, by the way. I think if that's an entirely different podcast. I think, if anything, that outing from Yamamoto may have inspired Shohei. Not that he needed it, right? Because he had that 6-inning outing, like you talk about, the greatest game of all time, supposedly, in the NLCS. I just wonder how much he takes from that 105 pitch complete game performance from Yamamoto a couple days ago. If he does pitch in Game 4, we could see something all time from Shohei. We could actually potentially see the greatest game of all time.
Yeah, and I mean, he had 13 days rest in between his Philly start and his Brewers start, and that led to that 100 pitch, 10 strikeout dominant shutout performance. What does that mean now? Tomorrow, by Game 4, he's going to be on 12 days rest again. So pretty similar setup. What's interesting though, and it is always the double-edged sword of being such a dominant strikeout pitcher. 100 pitches, 10 strikeouts, still only got him through 6. So it's going to really be up to Bieber to match that, because he could dominate in the exact same fashion and give 6 brilliant innings, and it could be 0-all, right? And then we're right back where we started, except you probably back the Jays in, given where Dodgers are at with their bullpen. So yes, the Jays offense are going to have their work cut out for them, but I think the pressure is entirely on Max Bieber to match him. And if the Dodgers are on the upper run or two when Ohtani comes out of the game, even if he struck out 10, they'd probably be looking around going, okay. Because as you see time and time again, when a truly elite pitcher comes out of the game, an ace comes out of the game, everyone in the dugout is like, every single pitch we see now is going to be easier than what we just saw, right? Like when you've got Ohtani and his 5 pitches just making you look silly for 6 frames, everything looks easier. And, your 96 fastball from the relief guy is very different to the 99 that was just brushing you up and in. So, yeah, all eyes on Bieber for how he can match in that one. I think the momentum that's carried from the result of tomorrow's game is going to be massive there as well. And we're going to see whichever manager's down 2-1, we're going to see them probably extra twitchy as far as pulling starters. And that can sometimes backfire, as we saw with Kevin Cash in the 2020 World Series.
The other thing to monitor, I guess, for the Blue Jays is the health of Bo Bichette. Obviously, he played in Game 1. He came off the bench and pinch hit in Game 2, and that was largely John Schneider just saying, I think he tweaked something on a ground ball that he fielded and a throw to first, and he just saw something and said, I don't necessarily want to risk not having him for the rest of the series. It was kind of a nothing pinch hit appearance. It was 2 outs. There was nobody on base. I think John Schneider was really just trying to get something out of an offense that was unable to do anything against Yamamoto in game number 2. So it'll be interesting to see. I would have to think that Bichette's going to be in the lineup tomorrow, but that's just another wrinkle, I guess, that John Schneider's got to deal with.
Yeah, RotoWire are usually like pretty accurate with expected lineups, with the exception of last minute injuries or scratchings, and they've got Springer, Lucas, Guerrero, Bichette, Kirk, Varsho, Clement, Barger, and Jimenez. Obviously back against a righty in Glasnow. There's a couple of extra lefty bats in that starting lineup. I think given it is sort of probably getting close to must win, I know there's still 5 games to go, but just having lost that home field advantage now, and we're approaching that sort of must win territory for the Jays, I think Bo has to be out there if he's anything close to 100%.
It's just such a much different looking lineup, right? Like, I mean, Alejandro Kirk, he's hit a home run in the series already, but it with him hitting behind Vladdy, it just has a much different feel to this lineup. When you've got Bichette hitting behind Guerrero, Lucas almost starts to get better pitches 2 ahead of him, right? Because the pitcher doesn't want to run into a spot to where he's got to face both Vladdy and Bichette. If you've just got to get through Vladdy and you don't feel like there's a lot of danger around him, then I mean you can navigate that. So just that one insertion of having Bichette in the middle of the lineup just makes this team feel so much more dangerous. And I think that lineup has the ability to lead to big snowball innings like what we saw in game number 1. So I imagine that's
Yeah.
probably why John Schneider used him in that spot in game 2, because it was just kind of like this offense right now is doing nothing. And if Bo can come off the bench and just get a single with 2 outs, even if it leads to nothing, it at least feels like we've done something to disrupt this guy on the mound, because the lineup as it was constructed in game number 2 just felt like it gave nothing.
Yeah, I think I like some of those guys. It was Barger in game 1, but I think I like some of those guys being the pinch hit guy and Bo being the starter, right? Like, for me, the pitch hit moment is so much more typically a guy you haven't really heard of, or just like the high ex Dow guy just like having his moment, than it is the star who's just been kind of sitting there. Like, I can count on one hand the amount of times the superstar who comes off the bench to pinch hit actually does something, as opposed to it just being like, we need to try something different or play platoon matchups here. And I think, Barger came on. I mean, IKF had a couple of ABs in game 1 off the bench. Lucas came off the bench. Like, they're the kind of guys I would like to see just to throw different looks at the Dodgers, knowing that you're getting 3 or 4 ABs out of Bichette. And just on the forecast for tomorrow, what's 71 in freedom units? Is that warm?
It's mild. That'd be about 21, 22 degrees.
Okay, so that's not a factor then for why. I mean, I can't understand those home run props pricing in line with an over-under of 7.5 or 8 flat, because those are genuinely Coors Field prices for props, and Coors Field lines are typically 10.5 or 11.
Yeah, I mean, that's a typical LA night weather-wise, though, I guess. But yeah, you're right. It does seem weird as though for whatever reason the home run numbers are inflated. Well, look, let's talk a betting angle for game number 3. Again, Monday night in the U.S., Tuesday for those of us here in Australia. The market is wild. I mean, $1.50 head-to-head for the Dodgers, $2.70 for the Jays seems way, like they say, the gulf between the two of them for mine seems to be way too wide, considering what the pitching matchup is. I mean, the bookies are obviously saying that they don't think Scherzer can go 5 innings. And once you get to the Blue Jays bullpen, it's all said and done. And then obviously how good the Dodgers have been at home, but it would be very difficult for me to take $1.50 on anybody in a World Series game.
Yeah, I guess just to close out the next 3-game preview, we obviously won't have a starter for game 5, but we're probably safe to assume they might loop back around by then, right? So it probably is Trey and Snell go back in game 5, but it's too far out to deep dive that properly and definitely from a betting point of view, because who knows if either guy is going to be needed, like as a long relief guy in game 4, when we're talking about like in particular Bieber, but Bieber and Ohtani, anything could happen, and your game 5 starter needs to come out of the pen because we can't trust any of our relievers to give us 6 or 7 innings.
And what's at stake as well, right? Is it 2-2, or is it a potential to win the series for either team? So depending on what's at stake, I guess could also change.
You're down 2-1. You need to, especially if you're the Jays, you're down 2-1. You're kind of like, well, we'll worry about who's going to start. We'll go bullpen game 5 if we have to. We need Trey to come out of the pen. A lot of ways game 5 can unfold. I mean, we probably won't get a chance to chat again before then. We'll do an episode after game 5, but yeah, a lot of scenarios there. On your point on betting tomorrow, yeah, I do have one I like, and it feeds into what you're saying a little bit. I just really want to isolate and remove the Max Scherzer factor from a betting angle tomorrow, because I just don't know what I'm going to get, and I don't have the confidence in him with his second start in 5 weeks, a 5 dot something ERA in 17 games. Like, sure, he's Max Scherzer, but he's also 41 years old and just not what he was. I don't know what we're going to get. We could get a legendary, I'm going to match, Glasnow every step of the way start tomorrow, or we could get a disaster. I don't have enough confidence to sort of bet with that in mind. So what I really do like is the Blue Jays team total. I love backing a road team with the team total. You get those guaranteed 9 innings. It's just 3.5 at plus money. You can get 210, 215, about the 3.5. Even in a game where they were completely dominated yesterday in game 2, there was very clearly a path to 4 runs. And this team's averaged 6 runs a game in the postseason. Just talking on those home run prop prices, there is serious pop in the Jays lineup, as we know, and we're still waiting probably for a signature moment from some of the guys. I mean, Springer won a World Series MVP by playing 4 games at Dodger Stadium 8 years ago. This is a guy who embraces the villain role maybe more than anyone. You know there's going to be a chorus of boos every single time he's up there. And if he can be up there with a guy or two on base, then yeah, I think the 3.5 is a play I really want to take because Glasnow can look great for so long. But I don't see him getting through 6 innings, and the bookies sort of support that with the 15.5 out market. So if I'm getting 4 innings against a Dodgers bullpen that can leak runs quickly, and if they're coming in potentially after Glasnow's walked a couple of guys, it just takes one swing. Budge has already cleared an over 3.5 team total with one swing in this series, so that'll be my play for Game 3. I'm pretty keen on that team total tomorrow.
So over 3.5 for the Jays in Game 3. Obviously, no market out yet for Game 4, but is there anything that you would lean toward? I mean, maybe a pitching prop with either Bieber or Ohtani in that game?
What I'd be really interested in is what I can get Ohtani's total outs market at, because I am interested in taking the under there. If it is, we have to crystal ball this a little bit, but if it's around that like 16.5, 17.5 mark, I think I'd like to take the under purely on what I just spoke about before. 100 pitches, 10 strikeouts, 3 walks and 2 hits only got him through 6 innings. If he was 10% less brilliant there, and he was brilliant, then he's not getting 18 outs. And if the Jays can get back to what they were doing in Game 1 and what they've been doing so well all season, which is disciplined long ABs that really ride up a pitch count, I'll be pretty happy to go against the trend and take Ohtani on from an outs recorded market, because he could record a dozen strikeouts and go through 5.1. That said, if the line's kind of like tomorrow where it's Glasnow at 15.5, I'm probably a lot less interested than I am at 17.5. So it'll be situational, and maybe keep an eye on Twitter as we get some lines out over the next 24 hours or so. But I think that could be one where everyone's expecting brilliance, and we could still see brilliance. But brilliance in pitching doesn't always mean length, and that's what made yesterday so impressive for Yamamoto, because he had both.
What's your gut telling you we'll be talking about after Game 5?
I think it's going to be 3-2 Dodgers. And I think if you're the Jays, you'd absolutely take that. What I wanted to say, if Eric jumped on, and I'll make sure I message him, is I've been on the other side of it, man. I was at Honolulu Airport flying out for the World Series when Seager hit that walk-off Game 1, and the Rangers won. But then the D-backs came back and won Game 2. It's the exact same setup here, right? 1-1 heading to now 3 home games for the lower-seeded team. I saw 3 home losses. So there's every chance that the Dodgers head back to LA, and if they've got a little bit of my luck and history with that sort of thing, you just lose all 3 games. It's not. I don't think World Series baseball typically seems to be as important for home field. I mean, when the Nationals beat the Astros, what was that, 2019? All 7 games were won by the road team. Like, for some reason, it just seems to sort of go out the window a little bit in the World Series. It definitely did for Arizona 2 years ago. So, look, the Jays would probably love to win 2, obviously. They have to win 1. That's just obviously a given. But I think if they win 1...
That's just math.
Depending which... Yeah, I mean, well, unless... To be honest, if the Jays win the next 3, they'll probably make it a best of 9. They'll make a little last-minute
find a way. They would definitely find a way.
Manfred will make sure the moneymakers get what they need. But yeah, I think 2 is obviously great if you're Toronto. 1's a pass mark. The earlier they get that 1, the better they'll feel about it. And if they can get either some brilliance from Scherzer tomorrow, or the offense can just jump Glasnow and Scherzer can just be fine, that opens up a whole different sort of path home for them if they're 2-1 up, knowing that those 2 games back in Toronto are are up their sleeve, and if they win both of those, they win regardless of what happens in Game 4 and 5. Where are you? It does for me
feel like it's a bigger game for Toronto tomorrow, just because if they lose tomorrow, it feels like they're in hang on mode. It's like they're in let's get back to Toronto mode.
Ohtani Game 4.
Whereas if they win,
yeah.
Whereas if they win tomorrow, they're kind of like, okay, cool, we've gotten that win. We've at least assured that we're going to go back to Toronto, and I think that's important for a team, as you talked about, coming off a tough loss after the emotional win in Game number 1. I just think that Game 3 is way more important for Toronto, because we know the Dodgers can win anywhere. They can win anyway. So if the Dodgers lose Game 3 and fall down 2-1 and still have 2 games at home, they'd be thinking, we can still be 3-2 going back to Toronto, and we can, win the series over there. I mean, they won the series on the road in Yankee Stadium last year, right? So it just feels like this game is much more important for Toronto. just to be able to get that win on the road, kind of steal home field advantage back, and then they can probably play a little bit more freely because they would kind of feel like maybe they're playing with house money in games 4 and 5. And if you could steal a win in game 4 or 5 after winning game 3, I mean, they would basically, I mean, they'd nearly be nailed on to win the World Series, right? So I think that's probably what John Snyder would be preaching to his club, is to say, look, let's go out, let's see if we can ambush and get on these guys early. Excuse me, because if they're able to win game 3, it just changes the whole complexion of the series for them.
And the nature of that win too, right? If they can do it by knocking Glasnow out in the 4th, and all of a sudden we need to see 6 guys come out of the pen to get through. Like, as great as it was to win, to put that 9-run inning on, as soon as you put that 9-run inning on, all the C-grade guys come out of the bullpen, right? So there were kind of no implications then for game 2 as far as our high leverage arms and their availability. Outside of, I think they went with Sheehan because they thought he was going to be the guy. He gave up those runs, and then all of a sudden you're not using those high leverage arms. If they need to, if the game's closed tomorrow when the bullpen opens, and that's early, and they can have some of these relievers come and throw 20 to 30 pitches and be unavailable for game 4, what that does for, a series that's now basically a 3-game homestand is enormous. So definitely win, but the nature of the win could have some clear follow-on effects.
How much longer are you in Bali for?
I get back Sunday. So what's that, the end of the World Series?
Life of the rich and famous. Spoon does whatever Spoon wants.
I'm neither of those things, but I do what I want.
Well, as Spoon said, regardless of what happens after Game 5, we will be back. I hope that we're still talking about a series that's alive, headed back to Toronto. It'll be 3-2 in somebody's advantage, if that is indeed the case. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hopefully Eric will be back with us. I don't know where he is. He's in the Sunshine Coast doing... Yeah, he sent us a photo from a hammock that just said, "Go Jays." He's having an existential crisis, but he does seem okay. He did message us a picture of some field and stream that he was at earlier today.
He has healthy coping mechanisms, doesn't he? Like log cabin for the Jays, log cabin for the Leafs, hammock for the Jays. Like, this guy knows what he needs to go and touch grass and reset a little bit.
I'm not sure if any of it. If you would think if it was helping that he wouldn't need it as much, but it seems like he's just doing it more and more. So I'm not actually sure that it's helping anything. I think it's more like addict behavior if you're for mine. Well, again, like I said, we'll be back following Game 5. Hopefully baseball is still alive, but enjoy the middle stretch of the World Series, and we'll see you back in a few days. Bye, everybody.